9, 12, 10, 28, 2, 23.
This is the DSR podcast. Hello and welcome to the second part of our special episode looking at what has happened between Israel and Iran and its repercussions around the world. Because the Israeli attacks were targeting not just Iranian military leadership, but key parts of their nuclear program, we thought it would be good to talk to our friend Jon Wolfsthal, renowned nuclear expert, about what this all means, what is likely to happen next with regard both to, perhaps Israeli strikes and the negotiations. Hi, Jon. How are you?
I'm okay, David. I'm okay.
You're okay. You probably think it would have made more sense just to stick with what we lovingly here call the JICPOA.
Oh, you traditionalists and wanting to rely on things like effective diplomacy and verification, that's not the world we live in anymore.
Well, even I look at it sort of as a bird in the hand, right? I mean, it was there. Was it perfect? No. Was it there? Yes. Now there's nothing there. And in fact, there's becoming less there every day.
Was it working? Yes. This is the key part. I posted last night, which you should never do, but I posted last night and said, we indicated during the Obama administration, the choice was between this agreement, the JCPOA, JICPOA, and war. And people said, oh, you're extremists and you're just, that. And the choice was between the negotiated agreement, which prevented Iran from being close to a nuclear weapon, and this.
Well, but, the one thing that, has to be factored into that is Bibi Netanyahu hated it then, and he has hated it ever since. And he has said, we're going to have war one way or another. And because he is who he is, he gets to say, he gets to have that decision.
Apparently, being the head of a very heavily armed country with a lot of influence in the United States and willingness to basically thumb your nose at the president matters. It was interesting, though, that Obama told, you probably wrote this last night, Obama told Bibi not to bomb and he listened. And Biden told Bibi not to bomb and he listened. And Trump told him not to bomb and Bibi bombed anyway. So what does that tell you about what he thinks of Trump?
Well, exactly. And I actually have a column at the Daily Beast that talks a little bit about that right now. But, when you look at the attack, one thing that I was told, and I was told this by Israelis too, is we can't go and hit deep and really damage what they've built, which is far underground, without the U.S., because the U.S. is the only ones with the bunker buster bombs and so forth. We talked about that a little bit in our prior segment with Alon Pinkas and Stephen Cook and Rosa, but I just want to talk to you about it in a practical sense. Could the Israelis, through what they apparently did last night or what they're planning to do real damage? Or, do they even have the tools?
So, in the biggest sense, you cannot bomb Iran out of the nuclear business. You can delay their program, you can complicate their program, and clearly targeting nuclear scientists is designed to make it harder to rebuild the program. But Iran knows how to enrich uranium. They have uranium, they know how to build centrifuges, they've stockpiled both centrifuges and the material. So all of this is a delay tactic. Until I'm sure Bibi thinks this will lead to the overthrow of the Iranian regime, but if Israel is going to use long-range bombing, they can't destroy the deep underground bunker where the Iranians have an enrichment facility at Fordo. It was built specifically to prevent Israel from being able to do that. The only country that can is the United States, and there are senators who have tried to give Israel B-52 bombers and bunker busting bombs that we have built that are specifically designed to go after these things. But Israel on its own doesn't have the capability to destroy that deep underground facility. And my understanding, based on the reporting, is that it's still intact.
Well, based on what I read, the reporting, and you probably read, better, different stuff, is they didn't even attack for that.
So Fordo is farther away, so it's harder. And, as we've seen over the years, David, the Israelis and the United States, when they bomb, they don't do it all at once. Part of it is defense suppression and destroying the Air Force and the surface-to-air missile sites. And Israel said that this is an ongoing campaign. It remains to be seen whether Israel will, for example, deploy commandos, which they've done in other countries, right? If it's hard to reach with a bomber, are you prepared to go in with a raid? I don't know what the landscape is, and I don't know what the Israelis are planning. But even if they're wildly successful at destroying facilities, Iran is going to rebuild. They have it in their capability, and they have every incentive at this point to now go not just for a latent nuclear hint of a program, but an actual nuclear deterrent. And my fear is that this will push them in that direction.
Yeah, well, there's every reason to conclude that. I mean, somehow the Israelis think, well, we're going to kill these guys. This will decapitate them and demoralize them. They're in an economic pickle. And so everything will collapse. And it's not impossible that that will happen. But typically when countries, particularly big countries with 5,000 years of history kind of countries, 90 million people, are attacked by their sworn enemy, people tend to rally around the flag. And that argues against that. Iran has some powerful friends, like Russia, notably, that are likely to help them in this regard in terms of rebuilding and recovery, because Russia needs Iran. Russia needs Iran in its Ukraine and elsewhere. And so, I don't know. How do you evaluate the Israeli bet on this? Do you think it was a smart decision?
Well, I try not to creep into dark places like Bibi's head. I mean, he has been, look, he's understandably worried about the threat from Iran, right? They have been engaged in ongoing covert warfare and proxy warfare for decades. And Iranian leaders do make a focal point of the revolution, death to Israel. So them building a nuclear weapon should worry us. I think there are ways that you can contain that problem and deter it, but Israel no longer feels that way. I think the bet is flawed on multiple fronts, and I think Trump is guilty of this as well. On the one hand, even if the regime collapses, what's to say that the populist, democratic, or whatever you're going to get aren't going to say, oh yeah, and by the way, we want a nuclear weapon too, right? The interest in nuclear weapons goes back to the Shah, so it predates the revolution. So it's not just a bunch of, religious zealots that are sort of interested in it. But Trump, put out on Truth Social or Social Truth or, screwyou.com, Iran better make a deal before it's all gone. And so if he actually thinks that this is going to convince Iran, oh yeah, now's the time to negotiate with the United States because they're going to protect us from the Israelis, they know that the United States can't protect them from the Israelis. The Israelis have already told Trump to go stand in the corner. So I think the prospects for a negotiated deal at this point are unbelievably low. And I think the idea that Iran doesn't rebuild their program, withdraw from the international treaties that allow for inspections and monitoring, prevent them from going nuclear, I think they withdraw from those as well.
Yeah, well, I mean, if you follow, you're an Iranian, and then you sit down, you negotiate with the U.S. and 4 other countries, you negotiate the JCPOA, then the U.S. unilaterally withdraws from it. Then the U.S. says that it wants to renegotiate. Then, while it's renegotiating, it, according to its president today, not its Secretary of State yesterday, but its president today, says, oh, all along we were actually planning to blow up the Iranian thing, and that the negotiation was just a ruse. Why on earth would you ever believe the United States again?
Well, and this has been playing out for years in Iran. There are, the ultra conservatives and then the mild conservatives, and the mild conservatives have said, let's negotiate and see what we can get. And the leader, the ultimate conservative, says, you're fools. The United States is going to screw you. And he says it over and over again. So now any politician that wants to venture out and say, oh, yeah, let's negotiate with the United States, they'll be about as popular as Democrats in, say, Nebraska.
Well, also, Trump's playing, 4D chess here. Neither you nor I can possibly understand the subtlety of his intellect. But, yesterday, the first response to the U.S. was, we had nothing to do with this. Leave us out of this. Then there was a Trump, well, I told them and it could have happened, and he was kind of hedging. By this morning, it was, this was all part of my plan. And, and the Wall Street Journal has a story. The U.S. has been working on this for 8 months, and the negotiation was all a ruse.
Yeah. Yeah.
So those moderate conservatives had the rug pulled out from under them.
Yeah, that, and of course, Donald Trump, the anti-war president, right? Why should we get involved? Touting, oh yeah, we were in on this all along. Marco Rubio's statement was, "We weren't involved, so please don't hurt us."
Right.
Right. So traditional crouch behavior. But now I think Trump has basically, Rubio tried to take the bullseye off of American troops and American targets, and Trump put it right back on.
Put it right back on him. Which, by the way, of course, if they go and hit the American troops, then the U.S. is going to get involved. And if the U.S. gets involved, this can spread into a variety of different ways, in affecting lots of countries and people and so forth. But let's go back to the original, riddle here. For the Israelis, they've said this is going to take weeks. They have also said that their goal is not just to destroy the nuclear facilities, it's regime change, which, by the way, good luck to them. We are not very good at that, right? Sort of, what do you expect next?
Well, I mean, look, Bibi is the original purveyor of regime change, right? Who do you think talked George W. Bush into regime change, and John Bolton and Doug Feith and Rumsfeld, right? It was Bibi. So, of course he thinks this is the way to go. Israel now has every incentive to prolong this war, the same way Bibi did in Gaza. By the way, they're still doing what they've been doing in Gaza. And so this also serves that other purpose for Bibi, which is territorial expansion and destruction of the Palestinian people. But he has every incentive to drag this out and prolong it because it enables him to maintain power, right? Israel, I'm sure, I don't know what the reaction domestically is in Israel today. You probably got it from Alon. But he just barely survived a vote of no confidence a couple of days ago, and I assume now a bunch of people are trying to jump in on the Bibi camp. So this is a win-win for him, and so I expect him to drag it out. I expect him to keep bombing not just nuclear facilities, but missile facilities where they produce intermediate-range missiles, drone facilities, which I think are going to be designed to signal the Russians, like, look, we can reach out and hurt you too. They now have an incentive to try to destroy all of Iran's strategic infrastructure and to keep damaging their economy. Even because remember here, the price of oil is going up, so Iran's smuggling and sales are going to go up as long as they can keep pumping oil. So I assume that the next shoot of fall is going to be going after the Iranian oil facilities to make sure that they can't profit from this.
Yeah, and at one point or another, and this is what Alon said, at a certain point it becomes existential for Iran, and at that point everything's on the table, including shutting down the Straits of Hormuz, including going after Saudi oil facilities, including a whole lot of other stuff.
And don't forget, where's the uranium, right? So Israel came out yesterday and said Iran has enough nuclear material for 15 bombs, which I don't think is right. But, IEA has said they have enough material maybe for 9 bombs over a course of a month. But Iran knew this strike was coming, right? That uranium was, I guarantee you, was not at Natanz. So where's the uranium? Do they have a plan to rapidly enrich that? And if it's existential for them, do they have an incentive to go nuclear as fast as possible? The very thing we've been trying to prevent for decades and decades may actually be the end result for this campaign.
Right. And, the debate, I mean, even, Netanyahu, when he made his remarks, well, Iran was between a year and a few weeks from a nuclear weapon. Well, that's what we've been saying for 10 years, right? That it's and clearly, they're closer today than they were, right? And a lot of it has to do with their incentive for getting there. And if, 3 days from now, the Iranians say, or 3 weeks, or 3 months, we have successfully detonated something in the desert, it obviously changes the picture.
Right. They've got to actually do it. Like, we would be able to detect it. We're pretty good at that sort of thing.
Yeah, of course.
But yes, if Iran does feel that this is existential for the regime, nuclear weapons remain on the table. And even if that is not a couple of weeks away, we have to operate on the assumption now that as Iran rebuilds their capability, the end goal will be a nuclear deterrent. It seems to be what everybody's doing these days, right? The United States is investing more money on its nuclear deterrent. Russia's using it to good effect. China's building up. Britain's going up. So Iran may have just decided, you know what? Being on the wrong side of this over time just no longer serves our interests.
This sounds a lot like your series of op-eds in the Washington Post.
Oh, David, you're very kind. But yes, in fact, we have a piece coming out in every week, whether you want it or not. There'll be another piece telling you, why you shouldn't buy unripe bananas. But we've got a piece coming out in a couple weeks, which is the looming wave of nuclear demand, and Iran is featured front and center. We're probably going to have to go back and start rewriting today.
Yeah, you may want to change the lead on that piece.
Maybe. All right, thanks for the tip.
Yeah, but one of the things that was reported here was that I don't know, it was the Israelis or somebody said this, that the Iranians were weeks away from opening a new facility that was untouchable even to bunker busters. And you believe it? What do you think about all that?
So I've seen the reports. I haven't seen anything concrete. There's
so to speak.
So thank you very much. Totally subconscious. The reports are that Iran was working on a new enrichment facility. By the way, North Korea has also just been detected as building another enrichment facility. So we've got other problems festering as well. But we have assumed throughout this negotiating process that Iran is preparing something under the cover, right? Under the old agreement with Iran, we knew not only where the uranium was, but all of the centrifuges and all the materials to make the centrifuges. For the last 5 years, we haven't had that. So we assume that Iran has squirreled away a whole bunch of capabilities, whether that's for a new enrichment center, whether that's in a cave somewhere. We don't have good reporting. By the way, as we've been undermining our alliances, our allies are sharing less and less information with us. So we don't even know what we used to know. But I think the assumption is that Iran's nuclear capability was going up from the day we got out of the JCPOA. I refuse to call it JCPOA, David.
Take that up with Rosa Brooks. She's been championing JCPOA for 10 years now.
I still have not won an argument with Rosa, so
Yeah.
We knew this was going up, but in the end, Iran crossed the nuclear potential threshold years ago. That was the problem that Obama inherited when the W administration said, okay, they have to have zero, and that's it. And Iran said, okay, great, we're going to build 10,000 centrifuges. So once they became nuclear capable, this was all negotiating over the price. And that price, I think, just went up.
Yeah, and I guess I'd like to conclude by going to one of the points that you make in this series of op-eds and that you return to on a regular basis. We've, with the exception of Iran, kind of been sleeping on nuclear issues for a while. Clearly, in the case of Iran, we're back on alert that things could move quite quickly. We haven't mentioned here, but it's obvious at this point. Doesn't ever get mentioned, but it's obvious. Israel has nukes, right? So that there is an incentive for not just Iran to have nuclear weapons there, and if Iran gets a nuclear weapon, what do the Saudis want to do? What do other countries want to do? There's been talk in the past. Well, if the Saudis needed one, they could go to Pakistan. They could give them one. The Chinese have a role to play in all of this. Other countries are going to be in it. The U.S. is saying we're modernizing our nukes. Russia's, China's upping the number of nukes it has. All of a sudden, we're in a world where this stuff, you're going to have to come out from your bunker. We're in a world where this stuff is really front of mind again. Are we entering a more dangerous period?
No doubt, and you've been aware of this because we talk a lot, David, and I think but the general public isn't. We've been in a more dangerous period. It's now that people are just finally realizing it. So our series in the Post is the next nuclear age. It's not like the next nuclear age is coming. Like, we're in it. Welcome to it. And thanks for stopping by. And it's not just the bad guys, quote unquote, that are going to be interested in these nuclear capabilities. U.S. allies are also going to be increasingly interested in developing nuclear protection, because if they can't count on the United States, what's to tell Poland or Finland or South Korea, who've talked about this pretty openly, oh, no, don't worry, the United States has your back, right? So not only will you see Iran and other countries move closer and closer or not cross the nuclear threshold, but our allies and friends that have been kept from building nuclear weapons by the strength of our alliances are all going there. And even if every leader in all those countries get every decision right every time, and I don't know about you, but I've been watching leaders for a while, like they make mistakes. Every nuclear stockpile is a source for theft or diversion or miscalculation. And so we wanted to prevent a world with lots of nuclear states because that's a world for nuclear use and nuclear war. The fewer nuclear states, the fewer problems in the nuclear world you have to manage. But we're going to see just how dangerous that world is because I predict that's where we're going to be.
Oh, you sweet, sunny, young thing, you.
I'm here to cheer you up, as always.
The reality is you didn't mention AI. The leaders may not be involved in this decision making.
Yes, the robots will protect us, David. That's true. But that won't necessarily keep us safe from the theft and diversion problem.
No, the robots may not protect us. You and I have had conversations. I've had conversations with people on the Hill saying, oh, we need to have legislation so that nukes can't be launched by AI. Right. And other countries may not be so smart about that.
That's exactly right. And if you're really worried about, say, a broad-scale sneak surprise attack by the United States, you might be willing to say, you know what, I need to delegate this to a machine, as Russia did during the Cold War, and as we worry other countries might say, because, well, if I get decapitated, then the machine will carry out the strike. That's stabilizing. I saw the movies. It never works out for the guys who invent that system.
No, it does work out in War Games with Matthew Broderick.
That's true. Okay, and he does end up with Ali Sheedy.
Ali Sheedy, but the computer says this game cannot be won, or whatever it said at the end.
Oh, David, see, now you're just tempting me. It's like, interesting game, Dr. Falcon. The only winning move is not to play.
Yeah. Oh, very good.
Why do you think I'm in this field? I wanted to marry Ali Sheedy.
Well, it's not a crazy.
No,
crazy
I did better. I did better.
No, you did, and so far we haven't been as close as we thought we were back then, but I'm afraid we're getting there. Which, the only good news in all of that is that it will lead us to conversations again soon. But, for now, I really appreciate your providing this perspective on this breaking story. And if there is more to it on this side, we will return to you. But for everybody else who's been listening, I want to say thank you very much. And we'll track this very closely. And if you like what we're doing, go to the dsrnetwork.com, click membership, and support what we're doing. It's like the cost of a latte per month. Until then, bye-bye.